I'm from Russia. I was born in Russia, to be more precise, in far east of Russia. Have lived many years in Moscow, and 10 years ago I moved to the Netherlands. I'm getting bored very quickly, to be honest, if I'm locked and doing the same thing for a long time. So yeah, for me, a constant change and learning is my motto.
Architecture and design in general, and I think the same as in the digital world as in the physical. It's something that, unless you're actively looking for it, a lot of times can be overlooked.
You are connected to the Evolving Digital Podcast.
Hi, I'm Adam Butler, and this is Evolving Digital. We're here to pull back the curtains and share the secrets of digital giants and disruptors. We'll be bringing you high-quality, in-depth interviews, and all we ask of you is that you hit that subscribe button so we can keep doing this. Now let's jump into it. Alex, welcome. Good to have you here today.
I see.
So obviously we know each other very well at this point. But for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Alex Koshkarov, and I work at Somfy as a channel director, project business.
Brilliant. What does that mean?
Good question. Yes. So Somfy is a French company operating globally. And basically what we do falls into three broad categories. So the main business of the company is manufacturing and distribution of tubular motors for solar shading, but also for doors and windows openings and closures. The second big chunk of business is smart home solutions. And the third part, where I play my role, is the automation of solar shading for non-residential buildings.
Right. And non-residential, that's...
That basically is offices, healthcare and care institutions, and schools and universities.
Brilliant.
Education.
So office, care, education.
Right.
Yeah. I say it like I don't know, but we work so much together. It's
more than a year,
yeah, it's embedded into us now, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. But we have something else in common. Neither of us are actually from here. So where are you from, Alex?
I'm from Russia. I was born in Russia, to be more precise, in far east of Russia. Have lived many years in Moscow, and 10 years ago I moved to the Netherlands.
And what brought you here?
Love for the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was love at the first sight.
Yeah.
I say.
Right.
Yes.
And you were working for Philips at the time, Philips Lighting?
Exactly. Yeah. I spent a couple of years, worked a couple of years at Philips Lighting in Moscow.
Yeah.
And then moved to the Netherlands, also working for Philips Lighting. That during my work time transitioned into Signify, which basically is a known big player on the field of lighting.
Yeah. And what was your role at Philips when you were back in Russia?
I changed a lot. Yeah, I did a lot of things there. Basically, was responsible for lighting solutions for office and industry. And then when I joined a company here in the Netherlands, and our office is obviously was in Eindhoven, I joined a very interesting team. It was a sort of a startup or a venture, developing and promoting solutions, lighting solutions based on the combination of fabric and LED.
Right.
Sources.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you like a challenge?
Yes, always. Yeah.
And how did you get into this work? Did you study back in your home country?
Obviously, yes. I've done many different things and studied different subjects. My main area of expertise is actually chemistry.
Oh wow!
My first master degree is in chemical engineering.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yes, some things to tell. And later, I also studied finance. I studied business administration. So quite a broad knowledge.
How do you make that switch from chemist to business?
Well, life sometimes takes us somewhere we don't expect to be. So yeah, it has something to do with private circumstances, but also trying to explore new things, I would say. Yeah.
And do you think that's kind of part of your nature to constantly explore and find new things?
I love exploring new things, and I'm getting bored very quickly, to be honest, if I'm locked and doing the same thing for a long time. So yeah, for me, a constant change and learning is my motto.
You know, you hear that a lot with expats. that it plays a part in why they leave their home country and come to
Exactly.
a different place.
I think it's a good characteristic of people who move from their home country or change countries several times in their life, and yeah, exactly. That's part of the exploration. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're here now for 10 years?
10 years. I moved to the Netherlands in 2014.
Okay. Yeah. And always in Rotterdam, is that correct?
When I moved to the Netherlands, I started living in Eindhoven.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it was the most obvious and logical choice. And then I spent some years living near Utrecht. And 1.5 years ago, approximately, I moved to Rotterdam.
Yeah.
That's basically the city that speaks the most to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you speak with a lot of passion about Rotterdam. So
yes,
what does that city mean to you?
Ooh, that's it's a very good question. Rotterdam is unlike any other city in the Netherlands. It's very cosmopolitic, if I may say so. Yeah, very open. It doesn't take you or open to you immediately, but yeah, it takes some time to win the city, let's say. But at the end, it speaks so loudly to you because there are so many opportunities, and it's also a playground for Dutch architecture.
Yeah.
So it's also a very interesting city to when you like architecture and design to be.
Yeah. And architecture, design, those are big passions of yours as well, aren't
Absolutely. Yeah. And it started many years ago when I started working for a company that was busy with corporate interiors. That's how I came to design world.
Right.
Architecture. And since then I've been always learning new things, reading magazines and journals about design and architecture.
Yeah.
That's why I love Rotterdam.
Yeah, I can imagine. And Rotterdam is one of those cities where it's very prominent, the field of architecture.
Yeah.
But I feel like architecture and design in general, and I think that, the same as in the digital world as in the physical, it's something that unless you're actively looking for it, a lot of times can be overlooked. Sometimes the simplicity in architecture, something that makes a good building, quote unquote,
right,
is something that can be overlooked. And I guess it's the same in your world in Somfy as well. The use of dynamic solar shading. Obviously, it's something that we've been talking about quite a lot recently, of the importance of solar shading and how that plays part in the larger vision of an architect.
Correct. Yeah. I say here is a bit of a dual story. On one side, indeed, the dynamic solar shading is being overlooked massively because people are unaware about the potential and what it can mean for a building. But on the other side, we always say the best dynamic solar shading is the one you don't see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does the right thing for you and for the building and for your comfort and productivity, especially if we talk about offices. But the best thing is when you don't see it.
Yeah.
Then we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also how it's integrated, isn't it? And at which point, be it a greenfield or a brownfield project, is it a renovational project or a new build? So how do you, as a team within the Northern Europe business area, how do you challenge these issues and look at getting dynamic solar shading integrated into projects?
It's a good question, Adam. That's actually one of our biggest challenges that we try to cope with, or we're coping with. Like I said, and you said, it's being massively overlooked, right? And this is part of our assignment to change the market, to change the industry, and talk to the relevant stakeholders like developers and investors and architects and consultants to make them aware about the effects of the dynamic solar shading in the building. Because in fact, there are multiple solutions how to achieve the building sustainability and get credit points for different certifications. But in fact, dynamic solar shading is one of the most economical, the cheapest, in fact, option, that delivers the best results.
Yeah.
So our role is also to be invited to the dialogue with the relevant stakeholders to inform them that, okay, next to HVAC, next to other potential solutions, they should consider DSS as a standard part of the building package.
Yeah, yeah. And how are you using digital to get this message across?
Well, I think we cannot overestimate digital anymore, because basically it's our life and it's everywhere. And of course, we do a lot to give the market and the stakeholders and the industry players instruments and means of getting the right information on the right time. So we can speak about the websites, we can speak about digital tools. So many different things that we are doing together with TRIM also to prepare an array of different digital instruments to communicate with different stakeholders, because we deal with a long chain of decision-making process, and on every part of it you have to communicate. And nowadays, of course, the communication is primarily digital.
Yeah, and that's certainly in the work that we do, we've seen a shift in that as well.
Absolutely.
In the customer journey, certainly in the awareness phases, which is where I operate a lot from my role. We see kind of a decrease in the offline medias and events, or where they are still prominent, a digitalization of these, so rather than just being a live event, we see a lot more hybrid events, for example.
Yeah.
Tooling has become a pretty significant part of the work that we do together. Within that, I'd like to look at Prism specifically, if you're happy to talk about that, because I think that's quite an interesting story of how we got to that, because it's I think to put it very black and white, it's an ROI tool, a return on investment tool, but actually it does a lot more than that, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And when we talk about return on investment, it is mainly applicable for offices, which is more a commercial part of the story, right? But like we said at the beginning, when we talk about care institutions, healthcare, hospitals, and elderly care, but also education, there investment does not play an important part of the decision-making process. There it is more about the comfort of people, right? Whether it is a patient or a teacher and a student at school. So there we talk more about how dynamic cellular shading can contribute to the indoor climate, that basically results in well-being and productivity of people.
Yeah, there's kind of a line there, isn't there, of kind of this human factor, this human element being really an important part of your work. I think if you look at what you were doing at Philips, then Signify,
right,
and then moving into what you do at Somfy, the well-being of people, be that from a light or a thermal perspective, has played an important role, hasn't it?
Absolutely. If we use a known Pareto principle, I would say we always talk about buildings and people in these buildings, and in fact 20% is more hardware and hard things like energy consumption and reduction of carbon footprints, but 80% in fact is all about people. That's why lighting is now talking about human-centric light and biodynamic lighting. And this is also we as Somfy talking about dynamic solar shading as a part of well-being and productivity story in the non-residential buildings.
So it's again very clearly an important thing for Somfy.
Absolutely.
But what does it mean to Alex? What does this drive you in your work?
What drives me in my work is basically a challenge, because when I came to Somfy, I didn't know what I signed up for, to be honest. Because if we speak 15 minutes, it seems quite a clear and compelling story, but at the end, it's much more complex. And again, I was very much surprised how much still needs to be done in the industry to create the awareness and to push the dynamic solar shading forward.
Yeah.
That it basically becomes a standard solution for every building.
Yeah. Which is that's an interesting point, isn't it, from a brand perspective? And of course, it wasn't going to take long for me to start talking to you about brand.
We're coming to it.
There we go. Because Somfy as a total brand is a very dominant player in the space.
Yes.
Yeah. Certainly from a consumer perspective, in regions like France, for example, and more now in Northern Europe, it's a very well-known brand in homes. So how do you navigate that from a projects business perspective when you've got such market saturation from a consumer perspective and you're trying to shift that focus from consumer to project?
That's a very it's a very big thing within the company right now. Yeah, because like you said, rightfully said, Adam, the saturation of the consumer market is pretty high. Yeah. So, and with that, we were of course also looking for the ways where we can play a role. And this is how the basically the non-residential part of our business got more traction, I would say. And again, looking at the non-residential buildings, we see that the solar shading is being mostly neglected, and only a part of it is motorized and a fraction of it is automated.
Yeah.
So basically, it's almost a blue ocean, while B2C and consumer part is like a red ocean. Yeah, everybody's there. Everybody's trying to offer new solutions for smart home, for home automation with Google, with big brands, playing a role there and being quite successful. While non-residential is still, it's a blue ocean. And we always say, especially for my part of the business, the non-residential buildings, our future is bright.
Yeah.
There is so much to do, and this is also what makes my role an exciting one.
So what is it about let's say the blue ocean challenge that compels you more than the red ocean challenge?
We can do a lot, and we are actually shaping the industry. In fact, the solar shading in non-residential buildings is a part of the construction part of the project, if I may say so. And although, of course, we see great examples of architecture also in Rotterdam, yet construction is a very conservative business.
Yep.
So, and making a move there and doing a small change can mean a lot already.
Yeah.
So it makes it so exciting that we basically have a carte blanche.
Yeah.
We can shape a lot. We can create new business opportunities, new ways how people think about it.
Yeah. And I think you made an interesting point there.
Right.
You made an interesting point, which is the construction industry. It's quite conservative, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And does that speak to that human element again in the challenge, that actually you're not trying to create massive business, but it's almost a human change that you're looking for there, isn't it? It's changing the thoughts and perspectives.
Absolutely. It's not about machinery or technology. Of course, it's an important part of the story at the end, but what we're trying to do, we are trying to change the perception and the way people think about buildings and people in the buildings.
Yeah.
So again, this is quite a challenging task, but that makes it so interesting to be in. So.
Yeah, and again, one of the things that we've spoken about in the past is this idea of building trust between brand and audience, and that actually if you bring in some sort of personal branding or some direct connection between a representative and a buyer,
yes,
that's a big part. And you've came with a quite an interesting mechanism for that, which is your certified specialist program.
Right.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that as well?
Sure, Adam. Touching the people side of the story, I always say, whatever you do, at the end, people work with people. Mm-hmm. So also how you present your brand, what does it mean to people? It's an important component. And I think it's the biggest component, actually, how the brand the name, the story around it, the storytelling, how does this relate to people and their feelings and their behavior. And by introducing a certified specialist program, we enable our business partners, solar shading installers, to bring this story to the market, to this very conservative construction industry, where again, we haven't seen things happening for many, many decades. Although again, the technology is moving and you see the craziest forms of the buildings being built across the globe. But at the same time, if you go one level deeper, it's still people working with people, and you need to be able to bring the message, or whether you do it yourself or by means of certified specialists, basically the companies who take the flag from your hands and bring it forward. This is something we're also currently busy at Somfy, which is a new thing, and we see it is being welcomed massively.
I think what I like personally about that proposition is that you're building in that human factor. So you're developing trust around a specialist. So you're giving this certification, which is almost extra ammunition and extra confidence for them to get out into the market. Absolutely. And also gives that reassurance for the audience.
Yes, you're right. And also we play an important role in knowledge dissemination. I think it's our responsibility as the leading brand to bring the knowledge to the market, to educate people, and to make them use this knowledge to turn non-residential buildings to a better place to be.
Yeah, and you really are not just the market leader, but also the thought leader from that perspective.
Exactly, exactly.
You know, I got asked an interesting question not too long ago, which I want to put to you as well. If sales wasn't a thing, okay, if your profit and loss wasn't a thing within your jurisdiction at Somfy, how would you measure success?
Good question. I think it's a challenging one, because when it comes to people, which in fact is the challenge, how do you connect to people and make them your brand advocates and promoters? I think it's all about how frequently people think about the brand you represent. Does this brand resonate with them? So I think it's all about the measures that we use in marketing, in digital marketing, the engagement, the sentiment that people have around the brand. I think this could be the direction we could look at. And just to come back to it really quick, the certified specialist program works really well because it brings in that human factor. Now, one of the concerns that a lot of people hold with digital becoming more prominent and evolving is that actually you become more detached from that human element. There's less direct contact. A lot of things are more automated. How do you look at that from a business perspective as well, in terms of building up that relationship with clients? Or with our business partners.
Exactly.
I think you answered your question yourself, Adam. You say relationship. That's in fact what we're doing, No matter how many digital tools and instruments you have, what we do, we always come to our business partners, to our customers, and say, hey guys, we have this number of instruments and tools for you. How can we make sure you use them to grow your business? And when you grow your business with our tools, we definitely grow together. So in fact, we don't like to call our customers because it basically implies buyer-seller relationship. It's more about partnership, which in fact falls into two categories: business partnerships between the companies and personal partnership. So you work day by day with the same people, with the same teams. And like I said, people work with people. So in fact, 100 years ago or today, the nature is not changing.
No. And I think that's really prevalent in the tools that we're creating, isn't it? because we're not creating anything to replace knowledge.
We're
but
not
to
substituting.
No, we're empowering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're enabling.
Yeah.
So this is a big difference.
Yeah.
We don't put our tools and brand as a layer between us and our customers, our partners. It's more an enablement story, which makes working with us more interesting, for instance.
Yeah. Well, working with you is certainly interesting. I think if you look at the neighbor group within the projects business, you've developed a little bit of a reputation, haven't you?
I hope so.
Yeah, and you've kind of become this front runner and maybe a little bit rebellious to the
rest of the business.
To the rest of the business.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm trying to be sensitive. Where does that come from?
I would say, it's a combination of several factors. Of course, the personal drive, to do something different is a part of the story. But I have a pleasure to work with some people that basically set up the vision, who are very visionary, that basically influence on my professional but also my personal life. And one of the examples, that's our managing director of Somfy Northern Europe business area, Sven van Witzenburg. So this guy is a big visionary. So he puts a stick very far, almost on the horizon, and says, okay, guys, this is the vision, this is where we are going to.
Yeah.
And then you have almost a carte blanche to devise the ways how you get there. And it's another thing that makes my work at Somfy very interesting.
Yeah. And you really have a lot of passion for your work as well, don't you?
When I was applying for my role at Somfy, I said everything I do in my life, I do with passion.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine working somewhere where I get bored quickly and doing a monotone work. It does not speak to me. It could be also interesting, and especially it depends on your personality. Yeah, for some people, this is the key, to have more stable flow of activities that repeat constantly. It gives a feeling of certainty. Yeah, for me, ever-changing environment and assignment, this is the key.
Yeah, and I think that drive, though, it was also always quite obvious that you had that by the projects and ideas that you brought to us as well. But I think the time that I noticed it with you the most was early this year, which was an interesting time for you, wasn't it?
Interesting, yeah, we could call it an interesting time.
Are you happy to talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes.
It wasn't the easiest start to the year for you, was it?
It actually started end of last year when I got the news. Yeah, and then of course I had to process them. But at the end, I had these kind of happenings multiple times in my life. And every time I come out of that situation stronger, maybe changed a bit. But again, for me, the change is the key to life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you mind talking us through a little bit what happened with you at the beginning of this year?
Yeah, sure. I had a condition, heart condition, and basically the doctors decided end of last year that I'm up to the heart surgery. And I was operated end of January this year, which was, luckily I underestimated what it would mean. So I entered a surgery room with quite a light mind. Luckily, I did it that way, because if you would overthink a lot, I don't know where I would be. So but long story short, I had a massive heart surgery. So basically 6 months ago, half a year ago. And it has been an adventure in different meanings of this world. But all in all, that was the beginning of the year. So I had to step out from my daily work and operation for several months.
Yeah.
You knew it pretty well. You know it pretty well, yeah, because we were working already quite close, yeah. Company, but also personal level. So I said goodbye to you end of January, but I think a couple of months later, I was so happy to see you again. That time on the screen.
Likewise.
Yes.
Likewise.
So today we are here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And but first of all, thanks for sharing that. I know, as I said, it's been a challenging half year for you, if not longer. Was it difficult to let go of the work in that period as well, because of that passion that you have?
Absolutely. It was a big challenge for me. People around me were trying to slow me down. It was a difficult period, stepping out, going down in terms of what I'm doing and how much communication I have with people around me. Asking for help was also a big part of the story. Yeah, through my life, yeah, I was doing a lot myself, and I'm used to drive myself forward. But again, what happens to you teaches you something, and I was lucky enough to have people around me who helped me a lot.
Yeah.
My previous colleagues from Philips, yeah, who became my friends, and I have quite some people within Somfy that I can also call my friends, although I'm working not a long time for Somfy. But anyway, I was so happy to have people around me. And also talking about digital, I can tell you, being in the surgery in the operation room, it's not an operation room in a classical term anyway. So it's more, I call it a space shuttle. So it's all about digital tools and mechanisms and screens. And I was very much surprised when I saw all this. So very high-end technology there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's become very high-tech, hasn't it?
High-tech, digital a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So now you're 6 months, maybe a little bit more further than that.
Right.
You're back in the flow of work, and
yes,
maybe not completely, but
almost there.
Almost there.
Almost there.
What have you learnt out of these last 6 months?
Good question. Let me think about it. I think when things become inevitable, I think you should embrace them.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the subject of this podcast, of this conversation, yeah, evolving digital. A lot of people think, oh, digital is too much, people really don't know what they're doing. Digital is inevitable. So my advice would be embrace it and make a good use of it. So I think the biggest lesson from this period is to embrace the unknown and navigate the best way you can, and also lean on support that your environment can offer you.
Yeah. I think that's a really beautiful way of looking at it. There's some challenges that we face that we can't avoid,
right,
but also challenges that we can't overcome on our own. And I think whether that's in a personal or a professional situation, looking for the right help, the right collaborations to overcome certain challenges, it's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And building those partnerships as well, and finding the people that you trust around you, that you can rely on.
It also applies to business, right? So we don't operate in vacuum. We are surrounded by customers, partners, and again, you can't have everything, and certain areas of expertise you have to seek for help, for advice, and for things that can help you to evolve. Yeah. And this is why I'm so happy we found our partnership between Trim and Somfy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes both ways as well. It feels like an extended team, I think, from both sides.
Right.
And it's become quite organic and, excuse the pun, evolved into a really great partnership.
Right.
Not only the projects that we do, but also being able to sit here with you today and have this conversation has been really great. So thank you for that, Alex.
Likewise. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks. So before we finish, we have a segment of the podcast where we ask the previous guest to provide a question for the next guest without knowing who that person is. So I'm going to ask you for your question for the next guest in a second. But before we do that, we have a question from our previous guest, and that is, as leaders, how do we ensure to successfully implement a DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion framework in our organizations without losing more conservative colleagues and customers along the way?
Good question. I think DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion, although it might sound very advanced and could be seen as, we can lose the conservative part of the story, but in fact, we can think about diversity or inclusion, for instance. Yeah, I can give an example. It's a common saying when people tell within the team, it's not a rocket science. In fact, by saying this, you can exclude people who might not feel comfortable with the subject. So it should not be seen as a very fancy way, talking about subjects that are on top of the agenda currently everywhere, but it could be as simple as that. So I think we should, again, fully embrace the story about the DEI and make sure that we apply a healthy thinking. How do we work? Again, people work with people, and we always, although we are using a lot of digital, that we remain human.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? A company is no different to any other group or society.
Exactly.
Very interesting. But for now, Alex, most importantly, I want to thank you for your time and for your openness and joining me here today. It's always a pleasure to sit down and talk.
Likewise, Adam.
So, thank you.
Stay connected to the Evolving Digital Podcast. See you next time.